This video is made possible by Backblaze. Get a 15-day free trial of backblaze.com/biographics. A total disregard for his own personal safety, an indomitable fighting spirit, reckless courage, and the gift of being nearly indestructible. This soldier survived 5 wars, including World War I and World War II, and became one of the most decorated British officers of all time and sustained countless injuries. Was he the unluckiest soldier of all time, or maybe just the quintessential British war hero? Well, make up your own mind as we hear the story of today's protagonist, Adrian Carton de Wiart, the unbreakable soldier. Adrian Carton de Wiart was born into an aristocratic family in Brussels, Belgium on May 5, 1880. The father of this quintessential British war hero was actually Belgian and a lawyer. His mother, well, she was actually Irish. Adrian was so Belgian, in fact, that throughout his life he was amused by the rumor that he was an illegitimate child of King Leopold II, who owned the Congo. Adrian's mother sadly passed away when he was just 6, and his father, Leon, moved the family to Cairo in Egypt. During this period, Leon married again, and Adrian's stepmother thought it was a good idea for the boy's education if they were to spend some time at a British boarding school. As the family was Catholic, he was sent to a Catholic school, the Oratory, near Birmingham. The founder of the school, Cardinal John Henry Newman, once wrote, "Fear not that thy life shall come to an end, but rather fear that it shall never have a beginning." Adrian's life would be on the brink of coming to an end countless times, but he never showed any fear, and for sure his life, it certainly had a hell of a beginning. By 1899, Adrian was 19. He was attending Balliol College at Oxford. At this stage in his life, as per his father's desire, he could have easily settled for a law degree and the pleasant existence of a typical toff, just enjoying his family's wealth. Except he didn't. On the 11th of October 1899, the Second Boer War broke out, pitting the British Empire against the Orange Free State and the Transvaal Republic in South Africa. This was a revelation for Adrian. In his autobiography, Happy Odyssey, he wrote, "At that moment, I knew once and for all that war was in my blood. If the British didn't fancy me, I would offer myself to the Boers." It turns out the Brits, they did fancy him. Adrian enrolled as a volunteer, faking his identity as well as his age. He was soon dispatched to South Africa, while his father still believed him to be studying law at Oxford. And this was the start of his real life, a soldier's life. Very early on, straight after training in South Africa, de Wiart and his unit were crossing a river in full view of some Boer commandos when he was shot twice, once in the stomach and once in the groin. So we're going to help you out here and keep count of how many times he was shot or shrapnelled or otherwise just injured. After being shot, a superior bluntly asked if there were many Boers about, to which he replied coolly, "No, but the few were very good shots." In the hospital, his identity was discovered, and so he was forced to return to England to recover and to face his father's wrath, who by now had discovered what his son was up to. Luckily, Leon consented and his son pursued a military career, and after Adrian returned, he decided to quit Oxford for good and return to South Africa in 1901 for another round of fighting. This time, though, he did it in style, booking himself in first class and handing generous tips to the bar staff, so that he landed in Cape Town with exactly £1 in my pocket. After joining a cavalry regiment, de Wiart was promoted to corporal. This promotion lasted exactly 24 hours, after which he was demoted again to simple trooper for threatening to hit a sergeant. But it was clear to de Wiart that he was destined to greater things, and after a few months he had earned, or more probably bought, a commission as second lieutenant. During the rest of 1901 and until the end of the Second Boer War in 1902, de Wiart greatly suffered for the lack of action. His only opportunity to do anything of military value was to cut some barbed wire in a Boer camp, but even then he was ordered not to do it. Fretting for action, at the end of the war he applied to be sent to British Somaliland to join the hunt for Mohammed bin Abdullah, also known as the Mad Mullah. Bin Abdullah had started a guerrilla campaign against the British East African colony, and he was fighting for independence and considered by his followers a Sunni holy man and almost a messiah. But to colonial authorities, he wasn't a messiah, he was just a rather naughty boy. Again, de Wiart's superiors, they curbed his fighting enthusiasm, and he was gazetted to a cavalry regiment in Mutra in India. The Indian stay was peaceful and largely uneventful, except for de Wiart finding a great passion for pig sticking, which basically consists in chasing wild boar on horseback through the forest to pierce them with a long spear. Anyway, when chasing one of these pigs in the jungle, de Wiart fell off the horse and the horse fell on him and cracked several ribs and one ankle. During his convalescence, he had an argument with the local servant and pelted him with stones. When the servant got out of range, de Wiart shot him in the butt. And at this point, it's pretty clear that this guy was in dire need of battle. His superiors, they were not amused by the attack on the servant, though, and they jailed him for a time, but he did manage to avoid demotion. In 1904, de Wiart was transferred back to South Africa. He wrote in his memoirs that he was happy not to see India again. I suppose the feeling was probably mutual on that one. The ensuing years, they were blissful. De Wiart spent his time gambling, socializing, racing horses, and shooting wildlife. He enjoyed several liquid meals, as he called them, but also cultivated his physical fitness. At one point, he was so strong that he could rip in half a pack of cards. In 1907, de Wiart swore an oath of allegiance to the king, formally becoming a British citizen within the British Army. In 1908, de Wiart returned to England, where his few regimental duties gave him time to play polo and travel the continent, and especially Austria-Hungary to shoot grouse, pheasants, and other game. In the same year, his connection to that empire was strengthened by his marriage to Frederick Maria Caroline Henriette Rosa Sabina Franziska Fugger von Babenhausen. And no, he had not become a Mormon and married 7 different women. This was the full name of the bride, an Austrian countess. They went on to have 2 daughters together. In his memoirs, de Wiart recalls the atmosphere of mistrust at German border posts whenever he entered the country from France, and how his French-sounding surname attracted suspicion, a clear sign that tension was mounting and that war was certainly on the horizon. You probably knew that one. When World War I broke out, de Wiart was on his way to British Somaliland to take part in what is now a mostly forgotten conflict, the Colonial War against the Mad Mullah, who we introduced earlier. De Wiart's desire to go and fight there, it had finally been fulfilled, but upon learning that the UK had declared war on Germany, de Wiart felt like playing in a village cricket match instead of in the Test. And for our friends in the US here, the Test is to cricket what the World Series is to baseball. De Wiart was assigned to lead a squadron of the Somaliland Camel Corps on the hunt for the Mad Mullah's followers that are vicious. When tasked with storming an enemy fort, de Wiart could not resist going on the attack head first. But the enemy position, it was well defended, and he was shot by the dervishes 3 times in the face. Indeed, one bullet took part of his left ear, a second bullet got him in the left eye, and a third bullet ricocheted and hit him across the very same eye. Of course, de Wiart lost his eye, but his assessment of the battle: it had all been most exhilarating fun. De Wiart took the occasion to return to England, where he hoped to be reassigned to service on the Western Front. The Army Medical Commission agreed to it, provided that he use a glass eye, which he hated. Indeed, while riding in a cab in London and finding the glass eye too uncomfortable, he just yanked it out and threw it out of the taxi window. From then on, he would wear his distinctive eye patch. Okay, now just before we get into his actions on the Western Front, I do want to tell you a little bit about today's sponsor, Backblaze. Now, our sponsors really, they do make it possible so that we can make long videos just like this several times a week. So when you go to use one of their services, because the links that we put in the description, it really does make a difference to what we do, and it really does allow us to keep doing it. So if you think Backblaze is for you, why not just click that and check it out? It's amazing. Now, Backblaze is the best way to back up all of your files. Now, as you guys know, I do test out all of the sponsors that appear on this show, and indeed I am using Backblaze to back up all of my files, both as we record this video and as you are watching it. So as we speak, my files are being securely synced with Backblaze's servers. Now, my computer's just sitting over there, it's churning away in the background. It does that all day and all night, just uploading the gigabytes upon gigabytes of videos that I make every day, just syncing with their servers, so I never have to worry about backing anything up. I can just rest assured that Backblaze is taking care of all of that, and it's also doing all of my files and other important stuff like that that I don't want to ever risk losing.
There's a better way. It's called Backblaze. Unlimited storage for $6 a month. $6 a month.
Now, fortunately, touching the fake plastic wood on my chair, I've never had to call on them, but if you do have a problem, you can download files directly. I'd do that because I got a super fast internet connection, but if I had a major failure, like one of my giant hard disks went out, they will actually ship you a hard disk, all encrypted, all nice and safe, so that you can just plug it straight into your computer, or you can transfer the files, or you can just keep the disk and pay them a fee. It's all super reasonable. Also, all changes to files are automatically backed up, so it's really just a hands-off experience. And if you're watching this, you can get a 15-day free trial right now. You can click the link below, or just go to backblaze.com/biographics. Get that peace of mind, and supporting Backblaze supports us, which is awesome. So don't put it off. Click that link, maybe open it in a new tab, and just try out that 15-day trial. You'll love it, I'm pretty sure of it. And let's get back to the Western Front. In February 1915, Adrian Carton de Wiart was bound for the Western Front to join a cavalry regiment, the 4th Royal Irish Dragoon Guards. His first major engagement was during the Second Battle of Ypres in April of that year. While on march to relieve an infantry unit, his regiment came under fire from a German artillery position. A combination of shrapnel and splinters from his own wristwatch mangled his left hand, leaving only part of the palm and 2 dangling fingers. When the field doctor hesitated to amputate them, de Wiart just tore off the 2 remaining fingers. What remained of his hand would be later amputated. At this point, he could have easily asked to be repatriated and just have a quiet life behind a desk. But he didn't. De Wiart could not give 2 hoots about his injuries, and he just got on with it, returning to battle undeterred and unimpaired. We like to think at this point in the story that he probably exclaimed, "'Tis but a scratch," and then returned to battle. He then went on to fight in the Battle of the Somme, during which his men recall him pulling pins from grenades with his teeth and then flinging them with his one good hand into enemy territory. He distinguished himself during the assault on the village of La Boisselle in France in 1916. 3 unit commanders from the 8th Battalion Gloucestershire Regiment had been killed. De Wiart then took charge of all 3 units. With no availability of field radios, field telephones, nor even pigeons to communicate orders, he decided to be his own messenger and ran back and forth along the 3 units to relay his orders, defying the hail of bullets and artillery shells raining onto no man's land. He and his men managed to hold back the advancing Germans. After this action, de Wiart received the Victoria Cross for most conspicuous bravery, coolness, and determination during severe operations of prolonged nature. This was the citation. After this, de Wiart continued to lead from the front battle after battle, exposing himself to further injuries. For example, in the trenches of Delville Wood, nicknamed the Devil's Wood, he was actually shot in the head. It was a clean, straight shot through his skull, right to the back of the head. If he had to die, well, this would be the right occasion to do so. Except he didn't. Apparently, de Wiart didn't care for being dead, so he simply survived and got on with it. During 3 subsequent battles, he was shot in the ankle, hip, leg, and ear. But after every stay in hospital, he regained full mobility and returned to the front time after time. De Wiart's assessment of this grueling experience of the meat grinder of the Western Front was, frankly, I enjoyed the war. The years between World War I and the start of World War II are often wrongly labelled the interwar years, because this period actually saw a lot of conflict taking place in Europe. And where there was conflict, you'd be sure to find Adrian Carton de Wiart having the time of his life. In 1919, de Wiart was assigned to Poland as a military advisor to the newly independent country, which over a period of 2 years found itself at war with Soviet Russia, Czechoslovakia, Ukraine, and Lithuania. De Wiart made himself indispensable to Field Marshal Joseph Pilsudski, and as usual, he got involved in all types of risky situations. In the same year, 1919, he survived not 1, but 2 plane crashes. The second of these crashes resulted in a brief period of captivity with the Lithuanians. After his release, he increased his efforts to support the Polish military, even organizing a gun smuggling operation via Hungary. In 1920, he got closer to the front as the war with Russia intensified. One day, his observation train was attacked by a charge of Cossack cavalry with the intent of hijacking it. He confronted the attackers single-handedly, quite literally, with his revolver. At one point, he even fell off the moving train, but quickly leapt back on it and continued the firefight until the train escaped from the Cossacks. When the Polish Wars finally ended in victory in 1921, de Wiart decided to stay in Poland as he had grown fond of its people and its wildlife, which he proceeded to shoot for the next 18 years. The wildlife, that is, not the people. In 1923, he finally decided to retire, having now achieved the rank of Major General. After a life of adventures, this gentleman would go on to lead a quiet and wealthy life in his adopted country, except he didn't. We all know what happened on the 1st of September 1939. In a matter of 3 weeks, Germany invaded from the west, the Soviet Union from the east, and the UK and France declared war on the Axis powers. De Wiart's quiet life in Poland, it was no more. As a former British military advisor, the best course of action was to flee immediately. He abandoned his estate, acquired a fake passport, and crossed the border with Romania. Upon returning to the UK, de Wiart re-enlisted in the military. In April 1940, de Wiart was recalled into active service despite, and I should stress this again in case you've forgotten, being 60, one-eyed, and an amputee. He was given the rank of acting lieutenant general and tasked with leading an Anglo-French landing force in Norway to halt the German invasion. This operation, though, was a complete disaster from the start. While arriving in Norway via seaplane, de Wiart's aircraft was forced to crash land. This happens on a ford where it was then attacked by a German fighter plane. Rather than boarding a rubber dinghy to reach shore and become a sitting duck, he calmly waited in the wreckage until the enemy plane ran out of ammo and left. After reaching his forces by the Trondheim ford, de Wiart realized that they were undersupplied, undergunned, and soon to be encircled by the Germans. But de Wiart, you might imagine, he didn't really care about the odds being stacked against him, and he just got on with it. His troops, they managed to break the encirclements by traversing over the mountains and back to the coast under a constant barrage of artillery strikes and Luftwaffe attacks. Finally, the Royal Navy came to the rescue and managed to ferry de Wiart and his band of brothers out of Norway, and they landed in Great Britain on his 60th birthday. In April 1941, Carton de Wiart was appointed by Winston Churchill to lead a British secret mission in Yugoslavia. The objective was to make contact with Tito's partisans and offer them Allied support, but he never got there. After a refueling stop in Malta, the Wellington bomber in which the mission was traveling went into a nosedive straight into the Mediterranean. Luckily, there was a coastline in sight. As the fuselage sank, de Wiart, 61, one-handed and one-eyed, swam to shore while carrying an injured comrade. Also, the coast they had reached was the coast of Libya, Axis territory, and de Wiart and his friends, they were immediately seized by the Italians. Our hero today was transported by the Italian military to the high-security POW camp established within the castle of Vinci Igliata near Florence. This prison was specifically dedicated to guarding senior British officers captured in North Africa. The average age of the prisoners was 52, but these indomitable officers, they had the energy of young soldiers when it came to breaking out. De Wiart was a part of at least 5 escape attempts, one of which involved digging a 60-foot tunnel under the castle walls. This was certainly a complicated endeavor for an amputee, but, as usual, de Wiart didn't give a damn about it, and he just got on with it. After 7 months, the tunnel was complete. De Wiart and 5 other prisoners succeeded in their great escape in March of 1943 and hid for some days in their countryside. Their cunning plan was to make themselves inconspicuous by dressing like Italian peasants. So yes, considering that one of them was a one-handed 63-year-old gentleman with an eye patch covered in scars and none of them could speak Italian, it was sort of a miracle that they managed to escape capture for 8 days. De Wiart, he was soon back in captivity at the castle though. Fun fact, by the way, this castle can now be hired for weddings if you're interested. But freedom was on the horizon. On June the 25th of 1943, Benito Mussolini was ousted by a monarchist coup. King Victor Emmanuel III appointed Field Marshal Badoglio as his successor, and the two conspirators continued honoring the alliance with Germany, but only on the surface. Behind the scenes, they were looking to negotiate an armistice with the Allies. They needed an intermediary, and de Wiart, he seemed to be the perfect choice, as he was due for release from the castle anyway because of his disability. De Wiart, he was taken to a tailor in Rome so that he could get some civilian clothes. As a loyal customer of Savile Row, he didn't trust the Italian tailors, and he protested that he didn't want to look like a gigolo. But in the end, he was happy with the suit that they fashioned for him, and on the 16th of August 1943, he was flown in secret to Lisbon alongside General Castellano, the king's chief negotiator. After an agreement was reached, de Wiart returned to the UK on the 28th of August. But he only had the chance to rest for 1 month before Churchill personally appointed him as his special representative to the Chinese nationalist leader, Chiang Kai-shek. Compared to the swash and buckle of previous years, de Wiart's stay in China is relatively calm. as his mission was more of a diplomatic one rather than a military one. During this time, while advising Chiang on his strategies against the Japanese, he befriended him and his wife, but when he got to meet Mao, well, he simply couldn't stand him. The Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek and Chairman Mao were uneasy allies in the war against Japan, but de Wiart, he was a staunch anti-communist and did not trust the future leader of China. Mao delivered a lengthy speech on the qualities of his faction. When he mentioned how hard they were fighting the Japanese, de Wiart cut him short. He said, "He tried my credulity a little too far. I told him that what they were doing was to keep looking over their shoulder to see what the Generalissimo was doing first." To his surprise, Mao took no offense and simply laughed. Another leader asked him why he hadn't gone to Yunnan to see their operations. "I answered quite frankly that I hated communism." De Wiart stayed in China until 1947, surviving yet another plane crash along the way, by the way. And let's add another notch, shall we? On the way back to Britain, de Wiart paid a visit at a friend's house in Rangoon, Burma. While walking down a flight of stairs, he was ambushed by an unpredictable foe. This was actually a coconut mat. He slipped on it and went flying down the stairs, breaking a couple of vertebrae along the way. The good thing is that the doctors treating his back took the occasion to remove quite a bit of old shrapnel from his body. And it was now about time for him to retire from active duty. General Carton de Wiart finally moved to a family estate in Ireland and spent the next years there writing his memoirs, hunting, fishing, and polishing his collection of more than 30 medals. Eventually, even such a legend has to die. After the last few peaceful years, Adrian Carton de Wiart's life, it came to an end on June the 5th, 1963, in his Irish home. While in recent years his achievements have been rediscovered and celebrated by major media outlets, this inspiring character is still little known. I hope that in today's Biographics we did our bit to perpetuate his memory, and we hope that you could do the same and share this video. Frankly, I've enjoyed the story of this gentleman, and I hope you did too. And before leaving, maybe answer this question in the comments. If you were to shoot a movie about Carton de Wiart, who would you like to see in the lead role? And as always, please do hit that like button, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Check out our wonderful sponsor Backblaze. And as always, thank you for watching.